Thoreau. What's up, Squirrel? There's not much Thoreau. Are you disappointed in how little Thoreau there is? These books are interesting to Squirrel. One of them was a recent free box acquisition, I think, so I bet she's smelling a house. Done smelling them? I always think there's different ways to read books. You can smell them. I just remembered another one on the shelf, and then another one I've forgotten out in the large size nonfiction. I bet there's one or two more, because I like Thoreau. I mean, I don't know that I have that many thoughts on him as a prose stylist, but he must have powerful, dynamic writing. I mean, because his ideas are put across forcefully and easy to agree with. Let's see, what do we have here? So who was Thoreau? Well, he was a man, and he lived, and he wrote books. No, he was probably, a naturalist, New England in late 1800s. He was, his thing was murdering campers with a hockey mask. What? Henry David Thoreau at Camp Crystal Lake in some way. Don't make him the killer. He should be like the sole survivor. Oh my gosh. I just got a great idea. I have a couple of Thoreau-related ideas. I really want to do a modern update of Walden Pond in a fictional way, but it's a guy by a swimming pool in an apartment complex. I think that's a good idea. But now I also want to do a Thoreau themed slasher movie where he's the hero, sole survivor maybe. No, Emily Dickinson should survive too, and she should help him. And Ralph Waldo Emerson, oh my gosh, I do want to write a horror film with these characters. I haven't seen that show Dickinson, but I bet there's dramatic elements that are funny. The streets are paved in Thoreau. Yeah, this last summer I lived in Thoreau, New Mexico, named after Thoreau. He really had an influence by some early 1900s postmaster. It's between Grants and Gallup, New Mexico, and it's where this little camp is I worked. And I thought, that is so fitting that I live in a place named after Thoreau. I've walked around the circumference of Walden Pond before a few times, made many visits to it. A few anyway. It's cool. It's very commercialized now. There's like paddle boat rentals and stuff on it. There's a recreation of his cabin that was really, I was like moved to see it. I love to see it. Emerson's cabin. There was some modern signage on it though that I felt like took me out of it a little bit, and I grumbled. I remember a really meaningful walk around with a friend around Walden Pond one night late in Boston in the year 2000. Well, not in Boston, in Concord, as they pronounce it around there. And where I once went apple picking, it was delightful. No, seriously, I did go apple picking there with some friends. It's cool. That's like a thing you do when you live in Boston. You like take a train out to the country and go to little festivals or pick apples or something. Visit Jack Kerouac's high school. Go to the ocean. This beautiful book is something that there's many versions of. It's just excerpts from Walden. And honestly, that's not a bad way to spend time with Walden, because Walden is a very wordy book. He's prolix. He's verbose. His writing is inaccessible sometimes. I know someone who's really cool, this guy Ben I met at the summer camp, and has great taste in nature writing and stuff, and he does not like this book. And I'm like, I think you need to read it again. And not this book, Walden. Because Thoreau wrote other books, like he has a book about Mount Katahdin in Maine, where the Appalachian Trail now has its northern terminus, and the Concord and Merrimack Rivers. And once he got thrown in jail for tax evasion, and he wrote something about that. Justice for me. There's so many funny things about Thoreau. He is kind of like a hilarious figure. I just see him as like a real person, but I like this person. I mean, to me, the funniest thing he ever did was when he burned down a person's forest really, being grown for firewood. Cops. Thoreau was like, what's the big deal? Lightning burns down things all the time. That's in here. I wonder if I could find that part. Oh, to Mickle. Happy 22nd birthday. We love you, Mom and Dad. My mom was all about the million nicknames for people. It was great. I'm glad I have this. This was given to me on the walk across the country that I did in 2001 on that birthday. And it had some really important papers because I had my ID lost when my backpack was stolen back in Georgia. And she had gotten my ID replaced, which is really hard to do when you are living on the road in a hiking group. Not replaced, but papers. That was what was in here. And two 20s or something, pretty cool. Yeah, no, my parents were great. My dad now has dementia, and it's kind of like he's already gone, but without any of the closure. And then I remember they said they got this book especially because it would be light in my bag. But I didn't care. I collected books as I went. When the top pouch was full, then I would try to send them from a post office. But sometimes they just kept building up. I didn't get to a post office. I was carrying around pounds of books. Worth it. Never complained about that way. We kind of had a mobile book club in that hike. Any book any of us had got passed around to all 6 hikers, usually. And I really remember some books from that mobile book club fondly. The American Way of Death Revisited, Lighthouse Mysteries of the North Atlantic, The Gift of Asher Lev, Into the Wild, The Perfect Storm. I think there was a Crime and Punishment. There's a book about college pranks. This is a 1-volume sampler, hoping it will entice its readers to go on to the full work. I've read it. This is his journals. Okay, here's the fire. It burned over 100 acres or more and destroyed much young wood. When I returned home late in the day with others of my townsmen, I could not help noticing that the crowd who were so ready to condemn the individual who had kindled the fire, that's him, did not sympathize with the owners of the wood, but were in fact highly elate, as it were, thankful for the opportunity which had afforded them so much sport. And it was only half a dozen owners, so-called, though not all of them, who looked sour or grieved. I felt that I had a deeper interest in the woods, knew them better, and should feel their loss more than any or all of them. Well, I'm optimistic about that I burned down the forest. Now I realize its value. Oh my. The farmer who I had first conducted to the woods was obliged to ask me the shortest way back through his own lot. Why then should the half-dozen owners and the individuals who set the fire alone feel sorrow for the loss of the wood, while the rest of the town have their spirits raised? Some of the owners, however, bore their loss like men, but some others declared behind my back that I was a damned rascal and a flibbertigibbet or two, who crowed like the old cock, shouted some reminiscences of burnt woods from safe recesses of some years after. I have nothing to say to any of them. The locomotive engine has since burned over nearly all the same ground and more, and in some measure blotted out the memory of the previous fire. For a long time after I learned this lesson, I marveled that, while match and tinder were contemporaries, the world was not consumed. Why the houses that have hearths were not burned before another day, if the flames were not as hungry now as when I waked them. I had once ceased to regard the owners as my own fault, if fault there was any in the matter, and attended to the phenomenon before me, determined to make the most of it. To be sure, I felt a little ashamed when I reflected on what a trivial occasion this had happened, that at the time I was no better employed than my townsmen. That night I watched the fire. Well, I remember a part where he talks about lightning strikes and kind of writes it off. It might be in here. Or I dreamed it. That's his journals. Check them out. I would just get the full ones, though. I mean, you don't need a little sampler. If I had I'll keep this one for sentimental reasons, too. Maybe it is nice to have a little sampler. This book's almost too thin, though. I'm worried about it. What's up to, Squirrel? I think she's thinking about jumping up on top of the bookcase. But all these cats are kind of round right now. Your jumping's not too good. I think she wanted me to put her up there. But I moved a vase so she won't knock it down when she jumps down. Be prepared. It's the Boy Scout motto. I'm going to make like some channel like postcards or magnets, and it's just going to be pictures of cats on bookcases. And the public will eat it up. Let's see some wisdom. This is old, like someone wrote this in 1969. Then they went to Woodstock. Caroline V. Dean. Was that also the year that people landed on the moon, or was that before that? This is nice. Yeah, I remember reading Thoreau when I was living in the woods in Alaska, living a very Thoreau-like experience. And I read the poetry of Walt Whitman during that time, too. And I had read Emerson essays all winter. I was very living that, what do you call that time? Life. They were like the transcendentalist writers, right? Man, I cannot film a video without Facebook updates popping onto the screen the whole time. And nothing makes me want to delete that app more than this crap. Like, I don't think anything should be able to cut in when you're filming. That is a design flaw. You should certainly have the option to turn anything off. I don't want a phone call to interrupt it. As the nobleman of cultivated taste surrounds himself with whatever conduces to his culture, genius, learning, wit, books, painting, statuary, music, philosophical instruments, and the like, so let the village do. That is the uncommon school we want. Instead of noblemen, let us have noble villages of men. If it is necessary, omit one bridge over the river. Go round a little there, and throw one arch at least over the darker gulf of ignorance which surrounds us. Sir, this is Wendy's. The sun is but a morning star. Oh, I still want to write a Walden Pond slasher film now. I can't. Oh, the characters, amazing. You can use all these great writers from this great time. I mean, of writing, you know? Like, that was kind of the first hippie era in writing, if you think about it. Like, they were all blissing out on what is, you know? Just thinking about it. Walking in the woods, living in the woods, hanging out by a pond, thinking about trees. I mean, it's so cool. It's like so necessary in the big picture of writing. Like, imagine if it was just always utilitarian. You know, what a good way to think about, start thinking about the world not just as a source of commodities, you know, but as a totality. And it's a return to much older thinking, to the oldest thinking, to many indigenous modes of thinking. History is just like learning and unlearning things, it seems like sometimes. But Thoreau pointed the world in a good way, you know? No historical figure is perfect, I'm sure. And, you know, what did he think about indigenous people? I don't know. What were his attitudes? You know, and he spoke from a lot of privilege. He went into a bar every day in town, which kind of makes me like him more. That's hilarious. Like, I had the best experience out of nature. Did you also go to a bar every evening? Also, who did your laundry? I took it to my mom's. You say you love nature, but didn't you burn down... This book is like, I've had like half my life now. It's crazy. Got this in 2001 out of the window of Jody Malone's bookstore, House of Sarah Books in Cambridge. She always did these wonderful themed windows that were the talk of all Inman Square. Actually true. Because she had this great fluffy cat named Spike with a silver collar and a pendant that sat in the front window purring no matter what the display, just sprawled out. The fluffiest cat ever, kind of like Baby Squirrel. Spike might have been even fluffier. Lived in the store full time. I would always acquire books from her window displays because there were so many good ones. But this one that she did when we walked into Boston, it was such a cool thing. We walked there from Key West, Florida, over so many months, and we weren't even done with the hike yet. But we just walked back to where we had organized the hike, and that is the weirdest feeling when you walk back to someplace like that, because like even seeing it by like train where you live connected to where you are, like there's a great passage in Look Homeward Angel where his dad can't see the place in the same way because he'd just taken a train trip and just saw it connected to all of these things and all these experiences that he had elsewhere. And that's how it was going back. So this was part of the hiking in North America, East Coast hiking themed window that Jody had put together for us when we got there. And it was a nice surprise. Like, oh, you did that for us? And there were newspaper articles about the hike and magazine articles all around it. And like a donation thing to sign up, because the basement of her store was our hike headquarters. It's all like a really like cinematic story, all of that. Like we got that basement headquarters because there was a giant flood, and we were working at, my friend Dakota and I were working at this coffee shop nearby, and Jody needed help in a panic to get buckets and tarps and like try to save some of the, you know, giant area full of books that was in the basement. This whole strip on the street was Ralph Inman's old house. He was like a slave-owning Puritan from way back in the day. His son sided with the British, and so his house was taken away by the government, and it was used by George Washington to do some of those early Revolutionary War battles and to organize them out of it. It's a really super historic building, but now it's just full of businesses in Inman Square, Cambridge, Boston. And it was this building that part of the basement was flooding and that the coffee shop was in, that my friend and I were working, this long red brick 2-storied thing with residences on top and shops down below. Kind of love that city, Boston. I can't even talk about it without being like, what a great city. Love how it's structured. I've never felt so much like I lived in a small town as when I lived in Inman Square. And it wasn't a small town. It was the biggest city I'd ever lived in. Sorry to go off. That's nothing to do with Thoreau, but that's what this is from. And when I recently wrote a 7-episode miniseries about that hike, I featured this prominently in it, and I read a passage. I'll just show you. It's chapter 20 of my book. It's the longest chapter.